Summer is here, and that means trips to the beach, days in the sun, and plenty of Carolina blue skies. It's also the busiest season for buying and selling homes, so it's the Sharp Mortgage team's favorite time of year. Are you thinking of buying a home this summer in our beautiful area of the Triad of North Carolina? Well, look no further than Highlands Mortgage, where exceptional service meets unwavering dedication. They understand that purchasing a home is more than just a transaction. It's a milestone. Their team ensures your experience is smooth, responsive, and genuinely caring from start to finish. So why buy a home this summer with them? Well, you get personalized customer service. They pride themselves on offering great customer service tailored to your unique needs. Their responsiveness is unmatched. They're always just a call or email away, ready to promptly address any questions or concerns. And of course, you'll get expert guidance. You can rely on their knowledge and over 20 years of experience to navigate the often complicated world of home buying with confidence and ease. Summer's the perfect time to find your dream home in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, or anywhere in the North Carolina Triad. Let the Sharp Mortgage team guide you every step of the way. With their caring and responsive mortgage team, make your home buying journey this summer memorable. Just call 336-575-9448 to get started. 336-575-9448.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
I'm Algenon Cash, and you're locked in. Welcome to this political roundtable conversation. It is a hot election year, not only here in North Carolina, but all across the country. I don't think you can tune into a radio station or turn on a television where they're not talking about the election, mostly talking about the national election. But you know, as my audience, I care so much about the politics that is happening right here in your backyard. I think local politics is so important and so critical to the things that you have going on every single day. I've got two great political insiders with us today. My longtime friend, Representative Jeff Zenger, is locking in with us. And then also Hal Weatherman, who's been a political insider for decades now, former chief of staff to Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest, and now the Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor. So happy to have Hal locking in for his first time. Gentlemen, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Algenon.
Awesome.
I'm doing well as well. So glad to be with you.
Well, Hal, let's start with you because so many people were able to sort of end their election or end their campaigning a little early on primary day. You had a sort of, I guess, round two, as they like to call it. You had to go all the way to a runoff election. Talk about the runoff and sort of how you pulled that off successfully, and whether or not you were also maybe shocked with the low turnout for the runoff as well.
So, yeah, I mean, my wife and I have been on this journey. I call it a journey because that's what it is, for a full 17 months now. In the original primary, I was one of 11 candidates, and we defeated the 10-man field. But the number two guy in that race did, contest the race and call for a runoff. In North Carolina, unlike other states, runoffs are not automatic. It's at the discretion of the number two finisher. If none of the candidates in a three or more primary field, if none of them get 30% of the vote, which we did not do, which was statistically near impossible with 11 people in the race, he called for the runoff, but we soundly defeated him. I was very happy with it, with our victory. We won 99 of the 100 counties, and we won with 75% of the vote. So, when you're going through it, like you said, you have to win it twice to win it once, which is kind of frustrating. Cost us several $100,000 and 60 days worth of campaigning where we could have switched over towards, targeting more the unaffiliated and the Democrat vote for the general. But if I'm being honest, it probably really did help me because it helped me consolidate my base to a very high degree. The turnout was about what we expected. The last statewide runoff that we had for a Council of State race was coincidentally Dan Forest 2012 his first run for Lieutenant Governor, and I ran that campaign. And so the last two statewide runoffs we've had, I've been involved in. Back then in 2012, the turnout was 150,000 statewide. but we had 3 congressional runoffs going simultaneous. That's back when Mark Meadows was running out in the 11th. I want to say maybe David Rouser. I can't remember the other one. So you had 3 different runoffs, congressional runoffs, that were up ballot from us that were driving the turnout. And even then, we only clocked 150,000 votes. In this race, there wound up being no runoffs. There was kind of a runoff, congressional runoff in the 13th district, but then one of the 2, Kelly Daughtry, dropped out of that race midway through the runoff. And so there was no exterior lift, if you will. There was no race above us to lift us up. But even then, we got 125,000 votes cast statewide. It is a very low turnout, but we were never scared of the low turnout. We anticipated it. And low voter turnout primaries, runoffs, usually result, kind of fall back to what I call the rank and file. And that's who I had been spending 17 months courting, was the rank and file. I was the only candidate of the original 11 candidates. I was the only candidate that went to all 100 counties. I went to 35 counties 5 times before. I went to 10 counties 10 times before, building what I call a toehold in all 100 counties. And it paid off. And so I was actually very pleased with the results.
Well, I recall the 2012 runoff with Forrest and Falwell very well. That's actually where you and I initially met about a decade ago. So I told many people, including my audience, that if anyone had the experience to pull off a runoff, it would certainly be Hal Weatherman. You're somewhat battle tested in that regard. Hal, you rarely see a chief of staff or a campaign manager jump into the elected side of politics. What motivated you to get in this race?
I never set out to run for office my entire career. So I was very happy working for Dan Forrest. Dan is like my brother. We're not brothers, but he's like my brother, in part because, I worked for him for 10 years. But prior to that, I worked for his mother for 18 years. His mom is Sue Myrick, different last name. That's her biological son. And I worked for her for 18 years, most of that time as her chief of staff. And so if you think about it, I really worked for one family for 27 years. And so we had a very family relationship. I was comfortable doing that. I felt led to be with them, both of them, with that family, to assist them and serve them. And never really thought about doing it myself, but, won't go into great detail, but I don't know, 18, 19, I guess more like 20 months ago, my wife and I on the same morning woke up. I don't live my life by feelings, but we both had a very strong feeling on the same day. And she just broached the subject. Why aren't you running for lieutenant governor? It was very clear Mark Robinson was about to try the ascent up to governorship. And she just posed the question. And I had spoken to a few very close friends about it, just casually. That either they mentioned it to me or I mentioned it to them, but no real thought given to it. And then when she brought it up, I'm like, why would you ask me that? And she said, I feel like you should be prayerful about that because it's on my heart. And I said, it's kind of been on my heart too. And I was scared to bring it up to you. And she said, no, I think you should consider it. And so, we're believers. So we prayed about it, brought my family into it to pray about it, brought my parents into it to pray about it because they're my prayer warriors. And within 48 hours, we all just had an overwhelming peace that this is what we were supposed to do at this time in our life, win, lose, or draw, to go do it, but to do it a certain way. And which was the way we have been campaigning, which is to, in a day and age of 30-second attack ads, TV-driven attack ads, we would try to do something different. We would try to connect one-on-one with as many people as we can, and just be more of a, what I would call a servant's heart driven campaign, where you're trying to listen to what people are saying to you, not so much what's coming out of your mouth, but do you have eyes to see what people are saying to you when they come to you, or ears to hear? And I hope that makes sense. But and we no fanfare. We just got in the race. No major announcement, no nothing. We just were the first candidate in the race and hit the road. And here we are.
It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor. And that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit 3magnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors. Retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors. 3 Magnolias Financial Advisors and Cetera Advisor Networks are not affiliated. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
You know, it does make sense to me, Hal, and I'm certain it also makes sense to Representative Zenger. Jeff, I think you were sort of touched by the same calling some years ago, and here you are. You're not just a freshman House member any longer, but now you're an incumbent. No challenges in the primary, but you do have a challenge in the general election. What are you doing to get ready for after the summer?
Well, we've got a lot of stuff going on to get ready. I've been through this now. This is my third state election for the state house. Plus, I had 4 little elections in Louisville, so we're no stranger. Our first election was extremely difficult, so that really teaches an awful lot. And so we're mobilizing volunteers, raising money, gearing up, and we will be a force to be reckoned with when we start to get into August. And we're ready to roll. I think the issues are on our side. We've done a good job. I feel like we're very in sync with where the people in North Carolina are as a whole, the whole party right now. And so, and that's just been confirmed as I'm out and about. And so I'm excited. I'm ready to go. I feel like, the horse in the gate. I'm just ready. I'm ready to go. Come on, let's go. But, timing's everything.
That's what I'm interested in learning a little bit more about today in this conversation. I know that right now we have a national election underway, as well as obviously what's happening here in our state. When I'm out talking to people, I hear people articulate some of the things they're upset with at a national level, whether it be immigration, inflation, some of those things that are happening, more at a federal level. What are you all hearing? And just for my audience, to make it clear for my audience, Representative Zenger as well as candidate Hal Weatherman are both Republicans. So I'm curious, as you're crisscrossing your district, Jeff, or if you're going from Asheville to Wilmington, Hal, what are the issues that people are saying here in the state and right here in North Carolina that are most important to them?
Well, I would tell you from my vantage point, I think that overall folks with state politics are very happy with the way things are going. However, there's one issue that I think rises to the top above all others, and I feel good about where we're positioned, and that's education. Everywhere I go, if somebody recognizes me, they come up to me, and someone will come up to me and ask me, are you guys going to add more funding for the Opportunity Scholarships? Are you going to do that? People want to know that. The second thing is I get people that come up and say, what are you going to do about public education? Now, they're not talking about as much as you see the billboards around teacher pay. They're talking about discipline. They're talking about what their kids are being taught. They're talking about all other dynamics of education, and it's parents, and they're wildly concerned. And they're like, the overall message is schools are supposed to prepare my kids to be successful in this economy and in this world, and what are we doing? And so it's pretty interesting, but I think that from what I'm hearing, education is the number one thing that is being targeted, and we're really firing on all cylinders with that in Raleigh, and probably see some news come out this week about that.
What do you think, Hal? What are you hearing when you're out there? What are North Carolina voters most concerned of right now?
I mean, it's going to be very similar to what Jeff's saying. It is a little bit different statewide, and of course, some things are more parochial to what geographic region you're in. But overwhelmingly, I sense what I would call just a general sense of angst amongst our people. When you're actually, a candidate statewide, county to county, they will vent. They will vent, and they don't differentiate between federal or state. They're just saying, this is the state of the world that I live in, and I don't like it. They're very concerned about the collapse of our southern border, U.S. border, and what that is going to mean, even at the state level. That they can connect the dots and realize that if you allow hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of able-bodied military-age men from countries that commit terrorism against the United States to stream across our U.S. border, that they are going to come inland and they're going to wind up in places like North Carolina. And I firmly believe that the next governor or lieutenant governor of the state will have to deal with what will be called homegrown jihadi-based terrorism even though it's not homegrown at all. It was willfully allowed to walk across our southern border. So they're concerned about that. The closer you get to the urban areas, there's a very tangible, overwhelming feeling of the rise of crime. And, again, I link that to the policies of the Democrat Party, both nationally and all across the country. I mean, that's the party that has basically put in place district attorneys that aren't prosecuting the law, implementing policies like catch and release, cashless bail, sanctuary cities, defund the police, and shocker, crime is soaring all over the country, especially in our urban areas. And so people are very frustrated about that. Everybody is struggling financially, whether it's gas prices, grocery prices, mortgage rates, just everything that's inflationary in general, what it's doing to our country and the purchasing power. So that is everywhere. But in general, it's just you kind of clump it all together. There's just this angst that America is losing its footing, that we are, they look at what's happening nationwide. They see what's happening to Donald J. Trump. They look at the weaponization of our three-letter agencies on the federal level. They look at a dual system of justice, and it scares them. And I don't blame them. I was at a festival this weekend down in Burgaw, and, overwhelming. I don't care what demographic group that they, represented, be they black, white, Republican, Democrat, because I talked to, several thousand people. Our country is about to go through a change. Our country wants a change. They do not like the direction it's going. And I think that's going to play all the way down to the state level. I love our General Assembly. I think our General Assembly has done a great job, but they are tired of Governor Cooper. They are tired of the Democrats trying to block and stymie things like opportunity scholarships. Just like Jeff pointed out, I hear that from everyone that's out there. They want school choice. They want parental bill of rights. And by the way, it's really scary to me when I talk to parents. To me, one of the benchmarks of the parental bill of rights is that parents always have a right to know what's being taught their children. They're minors. And absolutely, I have 3 children. I want to know what's being taught my children. And it should be a red flag. It should be a red flag to moms out there and dads. Why does the school system want to keep secrets from my children or from the parents about what they're teaching our children? That is a red flag. And so I think people are frustrated, and I think they're going to come out in droves this fall. And I think they're going to vote Republican. I really do.
Hal, and I'll give you a moment to comment as well. Jeff, I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of the things that you routed off. I would say that a lot of the issues that you brought up are what I would consider more national issues than state specific to North Carolina. Do you have any concern? I mean, you're running a statewide election. Obviously, we know there's going to be a bunch of money pouring in to the state of North Carolina from the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party. Hal, do you have any worry or concern that the national issues sort of get superimposed on North Carolina and your agenda and what you're really running on gets lost in the mix of that?
Well, I mean, I think that's always the struggle when you run for lieutenant governor. Lieutenant governor is you have governor in your title, but it's lieutenant governor. You're the top of the down ballot. You're not the top of the ticket. You're the top of the down ballot. I think our state in recent history, in the last 2, 3, 4 cycles, has shown a willingness to disconnect the down ballot from the top of the ticket and make decisions that sometimes are in conflict. And the way I attribute it, quite honestly, to what the General Assembly did, I think it was back in 2016, when they eliminated straight ticket balloting. When they eliminated straight ticket balloting, it used to people would go in, vote for president, then hit either Republican or Democrat. And that was it. They'd walk out of the ballot box. Now they're forced to stay in the ballot box all the way to the end. And statistically, it is proven that the Republican Party people, individuals that come out, stay in the ballot box longer, which means they're casting more informed votes for the lower level things. And so when that happened, you saw a complete reversal. For 145 years, our state, the Democrat Party dominated the so-called Council of State seats, all the statewide elected officials that are elected in their own right outside of governor and senator and president statewide. And the second they got rid of straight ticket balloting, we started winning lieutenant governor, DPI, insurance, agriculture. We started winning all the statewide. I personally think we're going to sweep. The Republicans are going to sweep the down ballot this year. I really do, because it's bubbling up from the bottom up. It's not coming top down. The people are restless, and that's just my armchair analysis, but I think I'm right on that. It's the same trend, by the way, that has played out throughout the entire southeastern United States now for 3, now going on 4 cycles.
Who's ready for movie night? Our friends at the Ginther Group Real Estate are proud to sponsor another season of innovation and cinema at Bailey Park in downtown Winston-Salem's Innovation Quarter. The next film is the Super Mario Brothers movie on Friday, June 21st. Bring your chair or blanket to Bailey Park for a great night of cinema from Aperture and beverages and food from a variety of local vendors. Pre-film fun begins at 6:30 p.m. and the movie begins at dark. These magical movie nights are made possible by the Ginther Group, the real estate experts we trust and showcase right here on the Triad Podcast Network. Check their social media for info on each upcoming movie night. And for your real estate needs, call 336-283-8689 or visit theginthergroup.com. Buying, selling, investing, or just learning. Whatever you need, start now. And like me, you can become a Ginther Group client for life.
Representative Zenger, I want to give you a chance to chime in as well. I mean, you heard some of the issues that Hal rattled off, inflation and immigration and some of the things that are happening nationally. But, what can the General Assembly do about inflation? What can the General Assembly do about mortgage rates?
Well, there are certain things we can't really do anything about. Mortgage rates and inflation would be 2 of them. That is driven by federal spending. The good news is we've got a great story to tell out of Raleigh. We cut taxes and we're generating budget surpluses. That's putting money back in their pockets. We've just passed a bill to force our sheriffs to cooperate with ICE. And so wherever we can do something to deal with some of these issues, we're nibbling away and cutting at them and going after them. I agree with Hal in terms of the angst that's out there. Back when Carter was president, they called it the malaise. It was the Carter malaise, and they had the malaise index that they used to use. You guys are both too young probably to remember that, but it was out there.
I remember that.
Okay. So, but I feel like it's the same thing. Our challenge as Republicans is just to get people to go down the ballot. I think the brand damage, and nobody knows what it's going to be, but the brand damage to the Democratic Party is huge. People don't want this stuff that they're peddling. And when I look at all the issues of the state, we have hit every single one of them all the way down the line. Additionally, I would say that one of the things that's going to happen either this election or this term coming up or the next term, at some point, and I think everybody is starting to really realize this, we're going to have to reread the 10th Amendment. The reality is I don't have any faith that Washington's going to turn itself around, but I do have faith that enough states with enough state houses that get it and understand it can play their cards and kind of turn the ship around for the federal government. The 10th Amendment is pretty specific about the power that we have, and for far too long, I think that states across the country have allowed that power to kind of arbitrarily be taken away from them. Well, we're going to have to start taking it back. And I think there's some comfort in that with our people to understand that they've got people in office that are solid, that are doing great work. We're doing great things for the state of North Carolina. We're the number 1 state in the country to do business in. And so, yeah, we're hurting because of the national effect, but we're doing far better than everybody else. And it's because of the leadership that we've demonstrated, the policies we put in place, and the tenacity with which we pursued those at the state level. If we can pick up a few more, continue to hold the supermajority and get Jim I'm sorry,
Al Weatherman.
No, not Hal Weatherman. I'm talking Attorney General Dan Bishop. If we can get Dan Bishop as Attorney General,
AG, absolutely,
and go ahead and sweep these seats like Hal is talking about, we're going to be in absolutely terrific shape to continue the momentum and continue to step up to the plate and do what we need to help the whole nation turn things around. And it's going to take a bunch of states, but we've got, I think 33 states with Republican state houses across the country. It'd be great if we had 40 after this election.
Representative, you said one of the challenges is going to be to get Republicans to go down ballot. I think that's always a challenge. Every election cycle, people tend to be so enamored with what's happening at a national level because it gets all the the attention. But I also, I just want to hear you react to this. I also think one of the challenges might be to keep Republicans unified. I mean, when you look around the country, at some of these most recent primaries that have happened, I mean, you still see candidates like Nikki Haley, who's getting 20, sometimes slightly over 20% of the vote. I read a report in the New York Times here recently that said the number of people that are leaving the Republican, not just leaving the Republican Party, but leaving both major political parties and becoming independent is growing at an unprecedented pace. How do you keep Republicans united in November to make sure some of the things that you're advocating for actually happens?
Well, I think, that's part of that is just politics. Listen, you're dealing with people, to put yourself out there is a really big deal. It's not for everybody, but then there's also folks that do that and they feed off of it for different things, whether it's ego or fame or whatever. And then most, though, are just out there to really serve hard. You're correct. And the biggest party in the state of North Carolina is unaffiliated. And so our challenge is not just to get them to vote Republican, but them to come all the way down the ballot. I think when we exercise and communicate well, it's all about messaging, but common sense, solid, principled policy that makes real impact. I mean, I'll tell you, just with the opportunity scholarships, my wife and I, a couple weeks ago, were on our back porch having dinner. You've been to our house, Algenon.
Lovely place.
Pickup truck pulls around the back of the house. Guy gets out. Comes on, I said hi to him. He comes up. I've known him. I haven't seen him in probably 4 or 5 years. Comes up, sits down, and said, listen, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to tell you that I can't think of a policy that has had more impact on my family in my entire lifetime than opportunity scholarships. That's the kind of stuff that's going on. So I think if we can communicate all of our policies, everything that we've been doing, like tax cuts and budget surplus, and people are seeing the capital that we're putting out into the communities and so on, I think it's going to be easy to get them to go down the ballot as long as we can message it well and explain to them, look what we've done. And whenever I get in a conversation with a voter and I start to rattle off the list of what we've done, they're excited to go to the polls. And I will say that doesn't matter, even if they're a Democrat. I've talked to a number of Democrats that are frustrated, and I say, listen, at the state level, look what we're doing. And they get excited about that. So I when I'm out there campaigning, I'm not campaigning for Republican votes or independent votes. I'm campaigning for every vote. Every single vote matters. And I feel like that we've earned the right to ask, for every single vote.
Hal, I've got about a minute here and I need to wrap up, but I do want to get your quick reaction. I mean, you are certainly a staunch conservative, very much an opposite from the opponent that you have in this race. You're even a Republican insider. I mean, you've been around this, as you even mentioned, for many decades. What are you doing to really court those unaffiliated voters in this upcoming general election?
First of all, I'll respectfully kind of put in context what you said previous. The Republican Party is not in decline. So for the last 6 years, the Democrat Party has consistently, month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year, been in decline. They are losing members. The Republican Party is not. The unaffiliateds are growing faster than the Republicans, but the Republicans are growing at a healthy clip and have been now for 7 years. So we are the number 3 party in the state because of the historical legacy of this being a Democrat state. But soon, probably within a year or two, the Republican Party will be in the number 2 state. And we're having electoral success even at number 3 statewide. And so in terms of courting the unaffiliated, I talk a lot. I lift a lot of the opportunity scholarships, school choice. I want an armed SRO officer in every school, public, private, parochial, charter, elementary, middle, high school. Don't care. Our kids are our greatest resource. They need to be protected at all times. I talk a lot about the discipline problems in our schools and how we can solve those. I too am a huge proponent of all things school choice, but I'm a big fan of charter schools. I was on the founding board of a very large charter school now that has 1,900 students right outside of Wake Forest where I live. And so when you start lifting up these issues like this, you are talking to the unaffiliated voter. They want real solutions to real problems that make their life easier, that make their life more affordable, to make their life more secure. And so those are the things that we lift up everywhere we go.
Gentlemen, I really appreciate it. I certainly could go on for another 30 minutes with you both. I love having these discussions. And Hal, just as a point of clarity, when I made the comment about the Republican Party being in decline, I was really talking mostly about both major political parties, not specific to North Carolina, but when you look at it nationally, you do see more and more voters leaving both major political parties and certainly registered independent. We'll have to bring you back for a larger and more expansive conversation on that issue, because I definitely want to make sure the audience has the facts on that. To my audience, I always appreciate you locking in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation that we had today with Representative Jeff Zenger, who is a member of the North Carolina House, as well as Hal Weatherman, who's a candidate for North Carolina Lieutenant Governor. I'm certain both of them would appreciate your support in November. Please go out, make sure you learn more about both candidates, and make sure you stay locked in with me. Make sure you're tuned in to WTOB every Sunday morning, because that's where the Locked In Show broadcasts. But if you happen to miss me there, hopefully you're subscribed to the podcast. You can download that on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your favorite podcast. You can lock in there. Until next time, y'all stay locked in.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.